Caribou, welcome to Wisdom Exchange TV, an Ignite Excellence Foundation initiative supporting Africa Business Women Connected Summit, taking place in Ethiopia in 2013. The Wisdom Exchange TV is a resource for African women to learn, lead, and succeed in life, business, and community. It is a forum where women of all disciplines will learn from African women in politics, philanthropy, business, and education. These are the women that are the change agents of Africa, companies, community, country, and continent. We will be inspired to stretch who we are from the words of these women. These are the leaders of today, for tomorrow. Please tune in regularly because we have new interviews every week and expert perspective blogs. My name is Suzanne Stevens, and it's great to be here today with our guest. I am the founder of Ignite Excellence Foundation, which our goal is to invest, inspire, and develop women leaders of tomorrow in emerging countries. As the host and the producer of Wisdom Exchange TV, I have the honor to interview women like the woman we're about to interview today. We are in Nairobi, Kenya, at the Beacon of Hope, with the founder and the visionary, Jane Wathome. It is a pleasure to be here with her today. Let me tell you a little bit about Beacon of Hope. It is a registered faith-based community, non-governmental organization instituted to address the HIV and AIDS pandemic among women in poor communities. This is achieved by setting up programs to assist in prevention and management of the disease. Beacon of Hope was registered in 2002 when it commenced its operations in HIV and AIDS work. Its mission is to bring hope to women living and affected by HIV and AIDS, with poor communities by empowering and equipping them to meet their spiritual, physical, emotional, and economic and family needs in a sustainable manner. At this fantastic venue, which I know is a labor of love, has vocational training, product development, and marketing initiatives, as well as a school for the kids while their mothers are learning and making a living. And this is all created from Jane. So please, let's welcome Jane. It's great to be here with you.
Thank you.
And I've heard so much about you over the last few months as I've been in Kenya. So it's finally nice to get to meet you face to face. Tell me, now, before you started the Beacon of Hope, you were involved in HIV and counseling, correct? Now, what inspired you to get involved in HIV and counseling at that time?
My background initially was in actually sales and marketing, and I'd done some business as well. And then I went to church work, where I was very involved in my local church in Nairobi Chapel as a volunteer and a counselor. And it's when I was in church that I felt led to go to school, Bible school, to study counseling, to study more about counseling. So I went and did a master's in counseling. And as I did my master's in counseling, I decided to focus on HIV and AIDS, because I realized that the bulk of the community, the population in Kenya are women, but also they are the most economically challenged. And as a result, they are those who are most affected by HIV and AIDS. And as I looked and evaluated my life and looked at my purpose and looked at my long-term vision, and I was asking myself, what do I want to spend the rest of my life doing? I didn't see myself going back to the corporate world, but I felt I had gifts and talents in business, in marketing, in counseling, evangelism, and I felt I wanted to use my gifts and talents to make a difference in someone else's life. So that's how I ended up doing the work of counseling in HIV and AIDS, but to a certain extent, not just counseling in HIV and AIDS, but bringing a holistic approach to HIV and AIDS, where they interfere.
Sorry, to that point, just as far as a statistic, because women get infected by HIV and AIDS more than men do, correct? Do you know what the percentage is?
Yeah, it's about 62% of those who are infected are women.
Okay.
The bulk are women.
That's what I thought. I knew it was quite a bit higher.
Yeah.
And that's just the way we're built. But that happens. Okay.
Yeah.
So, where did you work prior in marketing?
Before marketing, I was actually in school
Okay.
I was one of those students who worked and studied at the same time. And I worked with American Life Insurance Company doing hard sales.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Which makes you a great fundraiser. So door-to-door sales. Okay, we have more in common. So in changing and realizing that you had a bigger purpose, why the Beacon of Hope? I mean, this is a huge initiative. Why did you feel the need to create this place?
Well, it did actually begin here. I came as I did my thesis because I really felt challenged, not to just write the pieces and leave it there. And also because at that point I was searching my own purpose, and I felt I really want to be used by God to make a difference in someone else's life using all my gifts and talents that I had. So I ended up coming here, sort of like to see the women in the slums, visit with them, give them food, come and see them 2 days a week and go back to my home. But again, I felt challenged because I would come, see them live in deplorable conditions, give them a little bit of food, give them a bit of clothing. But I felt, and then go back to my comfortable world. But I felt that's not it. More needs to be done. So it's when I interviewed the women, they said they want to be taught to do something that is sustainable and something that will also transform their lives and stop exposing them too much to this HIV and AIDS. So when I came, it was not to start a big organization. I came to just help a few women to live a decent life and to help them prevent getting infected from HIV and AIDS. And for those already infected, live a decent livelihood where they can have access to money to buy medication and all that. So yeah, this was not in my agenda. It just happened.
So you've seen women transform their lives. Can you give us one that really, I'm sure they've all impacted you and I appreciate that, but can you tell us a story of one woman, because the Beacon of Hope exists, that really transformed her life?
Yeah. There are very many, but there's one particular lady called Joyce. She got infected with HIV and AIDS by her husband, but she came to know her status at our clinic. And when she got to know about her status and she knew that the husband is the one who had actually infected her, she went back home and decided, I have no purpose for living. After all, I'm going to die. And I don't want to live anyway in this condition. I'd rather die. So she went and bought paraffin and burned herself. However, our counselors heard about what had happened because they are the same ones who had tested her. They followed her up, and when they followed her up, they counseled her, gave her more counseling. Some of our counselors in our medical center are actually HIV positive themselves. They are a product of Beacon of Hope. They were tested here. They went through our cycle, what we call a transformation cycle, where they got skills training, and then we identified that they were women with a lot of strength who could inspire others, encourage others, and we employed them in the clinic to be able to encourage other women in similar situations. Wonderful. So they did that with this particular lady. They counseled her, and after 6 months, she came to terms with her condition. She was brought to our vocational training college. She was taught how to do beadwork. And then she suddenly discovered herself. She realized she has a purpose. God has a purpose for her life. And after she discovered her purpose in life and her faith in God, she joined our microcredit, started taking small loans, and she started, today she's one of the most successful women. She makes about, what I would say, in Kenya shillings, it's about 5,000 Kenyan shillings. In dollars, it would be about about $60 a week. In a month, you can calculate how much she's making, and she's able to support herself comfortably. This is a woman who was ready to die, who had given up on hope, but now she's able to support herself. She's able to live a life that is also encouraging and inspiring other women. And she's also become one of our champions who's able to counsel and mentor other women in similar situations.
Does she have children?
Yes, she had children. She's able to use now that money to take her children to school. And amongst other women who were also in our program, as I mentioned, we've been teaching them to go public about their status. And many of them have been able to disclose to their children also their situation, but not calm down with desperation, because now they're empowered. Yeah, they have a purpose for living.
Now, you mentioned about sometimes people will come here and next thing you know, they're employees of Beacon of Hope. I want to talk about that a little bit. Now, you started with yourself, and you've expanded over since 2002 to approximately 50, is that correct?
We have about 67 staff full-time.
67 staff.
Yeah, good time.
Now, how do you go about hiring those 67 staff?
I think it's been like, as programs continue to expand, when we began it was just a few social workers and then a few trainers, one trainer for the vocational training. But one thing led to another because of the kind of issue that we're dealing with. We found ourselves needing a medical center, so we built by faith a medical center.
Right.
And we needed a whole team of clinicians. So in the clinic, we have a team of 20 full-time staff, nurses, clinic officers, farm techs, lab techs, the works.
Right.
And then because the mothers used to come with the children, that's how the school evolved. But now it's continued to expand. So we have a whole team of teachers in the preschool. The skills training we've continued to diversify the skills training. And as a result, we have another whole team of staff there. And then the social work department is big. We have various social workers and we also run a microcredit. And because of the number of people that we are dealing with, because now we started off with just a few women, handful of women, but now we're dealing with thousands of people in the community, not just in Rongai, but in other parts of Kenya. So we've had to increase the number of staff that in the program to meet the needs that are existing. But also one of the things that we find is we hire our own because number one, some of the people who received hope are the best ambassadors. They are the best representatives of Beacon of Hope because they are able to share the love and the comfort that they've received. They are able to extend that to someone else. Secondly, I noticed that they have a lot of passion. They have that passion because we give them compassion. They are able to extend the same compassion. Thirdly, because some of these people were people who had given up hope, they were bedridden, but we've given them an opportunity. Some of them were actually educated, but never thought they could use their skills in sales and marketing. There's someone doing sales and marketing. They never imagined that they could have a second chance in life. So because of getting that second chance in life, they have just become great champions. They're some of my champions, really.
See, and I can understand that's a natural evolution, because they have an empathy for women that they're actually helping as well. So you have those women that came through Beacon of Hope and had the need, you helped, and they now are working here. Then you have the medical people. And when you go into medicine, you know you're going to be dealing with people with challenges. So I understand why they're here. How do you select the people that don't fall under those two umbrellas? What do you look for in that person? Because this is a pretty emotional job, I would imagine.
It is,
And it takes a special person, I would think, to work for the Beacon of Hope and see people that fate could be death. So how do you select those people? What characteristics do you look for in that?
I would say that we characterize what we use 5 principles. And they are all C's, 5 C's that was taught by my pastor.
Right.
And the first one is we look at competence. Are they competent? Are they committed? Do they actually have the character? Because if they don't have the character, then they'll be in the wrong place because we're looking at issues of integrity, we're looking at compassion. And then, do they actually also have the right chemistry? Because when they come here and they don't have the right chemistry, they may not fit in, they may not even understand and embrace the vision. And then the last one is cost. Are we actually able to afford them? Competence, we are also looking at the professional level of professionalism. As much as we are philanthropic, we also want to be a center of excellence in whatever we're doing. So for us, professionalism is one of our core values. And then competency, integrity, all those things that come with competence. Are they actually trained in that particular position, for that particular position? If you are training, if you are working in a clinic, we'll not just hire you as a nurse because you've come through Beacon of Hope. You have to have been a trained nurse. If you're a farm tech, you have to have been trained as a farm tech. A lab person, the same thing. A clinician, the same thing. A doctor, the same thing. If you are training as a professional in our vocational training, we are now registered at the government of Kenya under the Ministry of Higher Education, and we are now registered as a college, not just a center. We are now a vocational training college where we can actually give up to diploma level.
Excellent.
But to be able to do that, we must have had competent staff. So all the people that work in our vocational training college have to be people who are actually qualified. Same thing with our teachers. Yes, we may be dealing with children from challenging situations, but our vision and goal is to see these children become the next leaders of the next generation. And to do that, there has to be a level of excellence. And how do you achieve that excellence? By having teachers who are well-learned, well-educated. But what we also focus on here at Beacon of Hope is mentoring our leaders. We may get people who may not be very educated, but we sponsor them when we see that they have the character, they have the chemistry, they have the commitment, and again, affordable. We're able to expose them to different training opportunities, mentorship to schools, which have kind of the same values as us, but they're a bit up there, and we want our school to be up there, so we get them to go there for mentorship. And after that, we have also sponsored others to do from a certificate or diploma, because we know what we want to see in our children. And the only way that we can achieve that is empowering our leaders, I would say. So we are very much strong in, I would say, leadership development. But again, professionalism is very, very key, making sure that we hire competent staff.
So you've given me a lot here, and I'm going to break it apart a little bit and sort of get to the character you talked about in chemistry.
Yeah.
Are two key criteria for hiring somebody. How do you know they have chemistry with people at Beacon of Hope? How do you know that? Do you do anything before they actually start working for you to ensure that?
Yeah.
Or hope for that anyway?
Yeah. As we've grown, we've become much more, I would say, professional in our hiring and recruitment process. And we shortlist a list of people, and as we do the shortlisting, we have a panel of staff and people from external and some of our board members on the panel. And when we shortlist someone, we normally also call their references. And then we've gone to the next level. We get someone to come and work here for 2 days.
Okay.
As a volunteer. If you're going to come and work in a clinic, then we want to give you a practical interview in the clinic. And we get the staff to assess you. We want to assess the character. The staff assess you in terms of your chemistry. Do they sense that they can actually work with you? Can they see can they feel you? Can they feel the vibes? And that's exactly what we do in the preschool. That's become actually our style of recruitment now. Before we hire you, of course you have to have the qualifications, and then we have to get a good reference from your previous employer. But the third one is we get you to come and work with us for 2 days. And then we kind of sense that when we sit back again and everybody gives their feedback. If we concur and there's no issue, then we enroll you into the program. But we also put you on a 6 months probation. We put you on a 6 months probation, and within those 6 months probation, we're kind of observing you. If we feel after 6 months, this may not be the right person, maybe the character issue, there were some things that we saw that are not gonna help us get to where we want to get. You know, they may have said, yes, I'll take this amount of money, but within that 6 months they're saying, I don't think that money is enough. You know, which means we can't afford you, you know, then we normally decide at that point we part ways. So, but we've grown over time to be able to get to that position. But that has really helped us in terms of retention and helping us get the right people to help us get where we want to get as an organization.
Now, have you ever not hired somebody in those first 2 days where they've come in, you thought on paper they looked good, you interviewed them, they looked good, now we're going to test you. And then all of a sudden you've changed your mind based on the feedback?
Yeah, we've done that.
I found it in hiring people similar. Yeah. That last step seems to be the most profound.
Yes.
Yeah, so the team seems really important to you.
Yeah.
So how do you keep the team motivated? Is there any techniques or processes that you have in place to ensure that your team stays motivated?
Yeah.
Because again, it's an emotional job.
Yeah, it is an emotional job. And what we do is we have team leaders for every department. So I would say to a large extent, I spend most of my time. I have personally chosen to mentor the team leaders. And I guess that's a biblical principle I learned from Christ. When he focused on the 12, there were so many people who were following him, but he decided, I'm actually going to focus on the 12. And even out of the 12, I'll pick 3 that I'll really pour my life in. These are some of the principles I've learned from John Maxwell, as I've read his books. And so I have focused on my 8 departmental heads. We meet with them every Monday. We go for leadership retreats for like 2 days, and we get a speaker to come to speak to us, and at times, and then I encourage them to read. I expose them for different workshops. We sponsor them to go to different workshops. I get them to read different books, but I do a lot of one-on-one pouring my life into them. And then I encourage them to do the same thing with the people below them. And I always encourage them to have, do you have a Timothy that you actually mentoring? Who in your department is your Timothy? Can you tell us what you're doing with your Timothy? And the next level of our leadership training is we want to begin to, so that's what we do with the team leaders, but also what we've done with the larger team is since Beacon started, we've always done staff retreats, and we take everybody. We've trusted God to just give us the resources to go to some place, and we spend 2 nights together, all of us. And the first night, we watch movies. The second night, the second day, we do a lot of team building together. And then in the afternoon and the next day, we do presentations for people to present in their departments. And what has excited me most has been to see, there was a time where everybody thought it was a team leader at Beacon. We didn't start with team leaders. We started with a small staff force, but because of mentoring them and giving them opportunities to learn the presentation skills, PowerPoint presentation, you'd find a guy who's never gone to secondary school become a leader because of believing in him. And as we go for these team building activities, we notice that you begin to see people's strengths. You begin to know people when they're out of their workstations, and in that space, not necessarily their comfort zone, but after they relax, you begin to see who the people really are, and you begin to know how to mentor them and support them. So I think those staff retreats have really helped us bond as a team, but we've taken those staff retreats to another level. We have one that is for the entire organization where we go away for a weekend, and it's something that people really look forward to. And then now we moved on to another level where, as team leaders, we take them away 3 times a year, where we brainstorm and plan and strategize and pray together. And then what we've also gone to do now is once a month we pray together quite a bit. Every day, different departments come together and pray. They do the word together, they pray together. And then every Friday, the whole of Beacon of Hope staff come together, apart from the preschool that is normally on its own. And then once a month, the entire staff team come together. And we normally have a time of presentations so that that gardener, that cook, that nurse, that head of clinic can begin to understand one another and know what is happening at the clinic, know what is happening at the preschool, so that no one feels left behind. So that encourages kind of ownership of the vision. And it inspires people to own the vision and to own the organization because they feel a part of it. And then after we do the presentations, we pray together.
I congratulate you on such an intensive process for a few reasons. One is often when people think philanthropy, they don't necessarily equate that with organizational business structures.
Yeah.
So you have that in place. So you have the mentorship, you have the learning and sharing all in place. How did you know to do that? Like, you are one person, and then all of a sudden you went, I believe, 1, 5, 15, 50, 60. So how did you know to put all of these systems in place?
I think there's been different people who have invested in my life. Number one, I do a lot of reading. So I could say, as I've read different books, like especially John Maxwell, I've learned a lot of leadership. And then I have my husband, who I believe is a great leader, Ken Wathome. He sits on various boards, and he's done a lot of studies in Harvard, and he brings a lot of books home. So I read, I just read. I learn from him, I watch him, and he teaches me every time he comes from a workshop or he goes somewhere to learn something, he comes back and shares with me. And I guess maybe one of the gifts God has given me is I'm an executor. If I learn something and I don't execute, then there's a problem. So and then the other third person who's really impacted me in my life is my pastor, Pastor Oscar. I'll sit in church and listen to his sermons, and after a while I'll call him and tell him, Oscar, okay, can you define this a little bit more for me? And as I pick from him, I come and actually implement from what I've learned from him. So I would say those are some of the key people who actually influenced my thinking through reading books like John Maxwell. Bill Hybel is another one I read a lot from. I watch his videos. the global leadership initiatives. So I think it's through reading, and then I have, I take personal initiative to look for mentors. At Beacon of Hope, we have the medical center. So I've identified someone who is actually not a medical person, but was from the hotelier background, but is running one of the most successful children's hospitals. So I asked him whether he could be my mentor, where the clinic is concerned, because I had never run a medical center. And then I have someone else who runs a school, and a successful school for that matter. So I'll meet with her and I'll ask her all sort of questions about the school. And then I have another lady who is one of the best, I would say she's one of the most successful business women in this country, Minnie Gitao. She runs Pure Healthcare. So I'll meet with her and I'll ask her questions about marketing, about business strategies, and from her, I'll pick things which I'll actually come and implement. So I think one of the things that has really helped me is identifying mentors who are, in my view, successful in those areas that I want to grow in. And then I also meet a lot, goes with my pastor as well. Yeah.
So it sounds like it's identifying mentors, and sometimes that's the easy part.
Yeah.
It's approaching the mentor
Yeah.
that can be more of a challenge. So what do? Do you just call them up and say who you are? And now you do have success now, so people kind of know who you are.
Yeah.
But let's go back to 2003.
Yeah.
Would you just call them up back then as well?
At that season, yes, I still had mentors, and I'm a firm believer in mentorship, and I'm never afraid to ask.
Okay. So you just pick up the phone and ask.
Yeah.
Did you ever get denied?
I've never gotten anybody denied to meet with me, because when someone, and I also get people to call me and they say, am I in a position to mentor them? But I guess when you ask someone to mentor you, one of the things they look at is the level of commitment. How serious are you? Are you wasting my time, or are you actually serious? Yeah. So it's not been difficult, but I think I've also learned that I've needed different mentors for different seasons of my life and for different assignments. So as Beacon when Beacon was growing, when it was smaller, I had different kind of mentors. But as it has continued to grow and diversify in terms of healthcare, and we're just about to do a primary school, I realized I need people to work with me in Fox's journey, who are willing to make time. And it's me to go to them. The mentors actually never come. I don't expect them to come to me because I'm the one who needs help. So I'll call them and I'll drive wherever they are.
That'd be a little cheeky.
Yes.
You can be at my office at so-and-so time.
Yes.
Yeah. So, you sound like you have a very holistic team, and as a manager and a leader and entrepreneur in my own right, and working with many, training leadership, the one thing I do know is no team is perfect.
Yeah.
Tell us what are some of the challenges with your team and how you deal with those.
Yeah. I guess it's, when Beacon started, everybody who came on board almost came on as a volunteer. And they came on because of the passion, because of the calling, because of the commitment. But as we've continued to grow and I guess become more professional, there are people who come because it's a job and need the money, and they need the money. So the call may not necessarily be there. They will probably pretend initially. So for me, the struggle has been, you expect everybody who comes will come with the same intentions, and they'll have the same drive, and they'll have the same passion to give their 100% because they feel the conviction. So that's been, for me, one of the biggest challenge. But I've had to kind of come to terms with it because, again, I would say was one of my mentors. My number one mentor is Christ, and learn a lot of my leadership skills again from the Bible. And when I look at the life of Christ, within his 12, there was one guy who was called a Judas. He was part of the team, but he had not caught the vision. His agenda was totally different from everybody else. His agenda was different from Matthew's, for example. And then amongst that same team, there was a Peter, who was so passionate, and finally he was made Christ told him, you are the rock, and you'll be the one the church will be built upon. But at some point at that critical moment, he denounced Christ. You remember when he was told, you'll deny me 3 times. But he thought he could never, but he did. So I think it's also drawing lessons from scriptures and from great leaders like Jesus, to realize that human beings are not perfect. We are working in an imperfect world with imperfect people, but you need to know how to pick them for the different seasons, but also how to mentor them, especially mentor them, because he didn't do away with Peter. When Peter repented, he came back. He's actually the one who commissioned him with the biggest role. So I guess it's understanding that as you go along, you're not working in a perfect community. But again, that for me has been a wake-up call. It's one thing that has really stressed me. So I've had to read a lot of books on HR and just understanding human beings. And then looking at ways of, and then telling myself, if I can have 70% of my staff being passionate and have the 5 things that we're looking at, and have that conviction, we're good to go. We can still struggle with the other 30% as we go along.
And to your point with, reading HR books and things along and understanding how people make decisions, that's my area of expertise. And doing that, some people will always, you can mentor them, but to mentor someone, they have to have they want to be mentored. If I don't want to be mentored, you cannot mentor me.
Yeah.
So that can be challenging.
Yeah.
So if someone does come here to work and they do a good job, they just don't have the passion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they don't want to be mentored.
Yeah.
Or do they still fit in the vision of Beacon of Hope?
I guess they trod along. You allow them to trod along. But pray that they will change on one hand, that they themselves will be transformed. Something positive will happen in their life as they interact with the people who are passionate. Yeah.
Now, again, so many successes along this road, Beacon of Hope. Can you give us an example of an initiative that you implemented that it doesn't matter what it was, that just did not work? You tried it and it didn't work. Can you give us an example of that?
I would say there are many, but one of the lessons I think I've learned is never to give up, and actually never give up. We fail the first time and we will keep on trying until it works.
But can you give us an example of something that you actually did that didn't work and then you didn't give up regardless?
Yeah, I have a couple. The first one was our microcredit. The first time we did it, I could see why it's important to have a microcredit, because you can't spend your life just giving people free food and everything for free, because you're not empowering them. If anything, you're enfranchising them, because God has given them gifts and talents. And we cannot keep on using disease, oh, I'm infected, to continue getting handouts. I didn't come here to give handouts, I came here to empower and equip people. That's what our mission says. So after some time, we felt we can't continue like that. We need to, apart from the skills, we need to access credit to the people who are doing the skills and some of the ones who are not doing the skills, but have a business initiative. So when we started the business, the microcredit, the people who took the money never repaid, and they couldn't even see the vision. But we kept at it, and at some point, kind of gave up a little bit, and then we got a champion. We hired someone like that as his passion. He carried it on as his burden, continued on. Now it is taken a life. Finally the people, we had to make some tough decisions. We had to cut off things like food rations. We used to give food rations. We used to give cooked food as well. We cut off that. We had to go making tough choices. And as we went making those tough choices and moving from charity to focusing so much on empowerment and providing that as an alternative, then the people caught the vision. It's flying now. We have thousands of people now who are part of that microcredit. That's one. And then, as we used to give we had tried the kitchen garden program back in 2003, and I went to the Ministry of Agriculture, and I got them to come to Beacon of Hope to teach people how to use sack gardens to generate their own food in their little backyards. Again, the women were completely opposed to the idea. They thought, this can never work. It can never work. After some time, it collapsed. The whole thing didn't work. But I put it on my back burner somewhere, but I knew one day it has to work. So again, when we did away with the food rations, and we did away with the food donations, and we brought in a microcredit, we took a number of them. We got a partner who was willing to support us, and we spoke again to the Ministry of Agriculture, and we took 100 of the women to a training college, residential training for a week, for a month actually. Every week we could have like 20, 25 people going. And after they went for this training, something changed. There was a paradigm shift. And Beacon had also moved to this bigger property, and we have our own piece of land here, and we're able to do a demo farm. And as we demonstrated, they realized it can actually be done. But of course, we had had to make that tough call of doing away with food donations and rations. But now the whole thing has taken a life of its own. They are doing it. It's moving on its own.
So, you know, you've tried a couple projects.
Yeah.
They didn't work, and one came back later on, and it now works.
Yeah.
What did you learn about yourself during that time when things didn't work?
I think one thing I've learned about myself is I'm not a quitter, and I never give up. If I'm convinced about an idea, no matter how long it takes, we still keep on going on to it and making sure that it works. It may not work in the short term, but as long as I'm convinced it is good for the people, it's good for the community, it's good for the organization, we still go at it until it works. Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
So today, you know, Beacon of Hope, of course, has been a big part of your life, but it's your career started before that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So today, what's been the most rewarding aspect of your career?
I would say seeing lives, seeing God using my gifts and talents to transform a community, I would say, not just a woman, but an entire community. And then also seeing myself grow in terms of leadership, doing things that I never thought I would do. One of the things I feared the most was public speaking. But because I'm passionate about what I do, I don't struggle with it anymore. Yeah, so it's been an exciting opportunity for me seeing myself grow in terms of faith and trusting God for the impossible. I think for me that has been exciting. I've really grown in terms of not just faith of what I believe in, but the definition of the faith, being sure of the things that you hope for, believing in God for the impossible. And then I think the other thing it has taught me is the growth I've seen in my career is learning to allow myself to be stretched. It's not been easy to get where we've gotten. And even the same things that I've learned, it's changed me such that even in my home life and even in relation to other people and other places where I sit on the board, I've been able to encourage people to trust God for big things. Yeah.
So, you know, there's trust, and that's important. But what would you say, so that's the most rewarding, but what's the most challenging thing that you've encountered in your career?
Most challenging? The whole thing of leadership is not a joke. Getting people to see what you're saying has not been easy. But again, because I've learned that I'm not a quitter, I never give up on them. You know, be it be people like Beacon, be it be people out there who need to see what we are saying so they can partner with us. It's not been easy. And then I find that I'm a doer, and I'm the type who like being self-sufficient. But at times you have to find yourself begging, you know, you have to. So I find that demeaning sometimes, and have to kind of self-cancel. You're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it for those, for the big stuff there is. But I keep on thinking, why can't people just get convicted, for example, to sponsor a child? Why do we have to keep on begging, you know? So there's normally sometimes a challenge within me where I'm trying to see how we can just be so self-sufficient when we don't have to fundraise, when we don't have to beg, you know. So that can be a challenge, because this is just what I do has just become a part of my career. It's become such a part of my life. Yeah.
What would you say would be the most significant decision that you've actually made in your career?
I think most significant was when I made the decision to do this full time, just to kind of forget about my corporate world and where I'll get a big fat salary, and to give of my life to be a blessing to the women in the community. Just making that decision. I remember it was April 2002, and I was in the car. And I just sat there, and I remember I had taken some women. We didn't have the center then. I would just come on my free time, pick up a few of them in my car, and go around looking for doctors who could actually assist them. And I remember having that conversation with God, where He was asking me, and I had promised my children that I would take them for swimming, and time was running out. But something was telling me I need to wait for this in there after they've seen the doctor, and I need to take them for lunch, and I need to drop them to the bus stop. And I was really struggling with all this. Okay, my family is waiting for me, I still have to hang around with these women. And as I was driving home in April that day, 2002, I remember having this conversation with God, and He was like sitting there next to me telling me, so, how far are you willing to go with this? And I sat there and I felt He needed an answer. Like, now, how far? Is it a hobby? Is it one of those things that you do as a hobby, then you go back to your comfortable world, do the nice things, you know? And I remember having that conversation with God, and I came to a point where I broke down and I said, you know what? I'm ready to give my rest of my life for this. But it was so interesting because when you say yes to some of these things, God tests you. 2 days after that, a woman was very sick. One of the women was very sick, and she was admitted in hospital. And I went to visit her. And so in this conversation, the Lord asked me, we're still in the car, let me retract a little bit. How far are you willing to go with this? And I said, I'm willing to give the rest of my life for this. And then He asked me, and if I asked you to watch them, would you watch them? You know, there was a voice, this was a conversation that was going through my mind. And I said, yes, Lord, I am willing. And I remember breaking down and crying. And then 2 days after, God presented an occasion where this woman was sick. I was called. I was told she's admitted in hospital. I went with a friend of mine. And we basically had to beg her because the nurses were not willing to help these women in Baghdad District Hospital. You know, there were all these sick women. And here was our client. And then the rest of the beds were people, women, covered in green blankets. And then I asked our client, how come all these women are covered? Oh, because they're dead, they're waiting for the truck to come and pick them. And then the lady now we had gone to visit, who was our client, couldn't even talk, but the other clients were with us, and she needed to go to the washroom. And then we looked at the women, and we asked her, where's the washroom? And she said, oh, here we use buckets. You know? And then they normally come and throw food at them, but this woman could also not feed herself. So we had to bake this woman, you know, take her to the washroom, feed her. Exactly what the Lord had asked me. If I asked you to watch them, would you watch them? I found myself doing that exactly 2 days after. And I guess for me that was a turning point. I realized this is not a joke. This is more than a calling. There will be very many more like this coming. And that's actually what led us to have this medical center, because I felt we can't keep on having people go there, dying, and living in situations where they don't have access to good medical care. Yeah.
You know, you hear a story like that, you know you're doing the right thing. It is your purpose, and I'll come to that later on. But it begs the question, are you been able to financially support yourself through the Beacon of Hope?
I haven't, because for me this is a calling that I've given my life to do this. And if anything, with my family, what we do is to support the ministry as much as we can. Support the work, we do support the work. But again, I would keep on saying God is a God of graciousness. He's been able to support me through my family, through my husband. I would say to a certain extent, we are blessed. He's got businesses in which I'm also involved.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so somewhere along the way, you're doing something, but somebody else in your family is able to support your vision, passion, your mission, if you will. But you still have that security. Okay. Because I think oftentimes it's where we have to support ourselves. That gets forgotten, and that's why I ask you the question. Because I think it's an important element of see a vision, but you have to be able to feed yourself.
Yes, because I have children and they have to go to school. So,
Wonderful. You mentioned, and I've read, and you've mentioned it in this interview, getting out of your comfort zone. And you mentioned presentation skills as being one of them, which happen to be mine. Now I train it for a living. You also, what else have you done? This is what I call my edginess segment. And what edginess means is when you get outside your comfort zone, you meet somebody, an enhanced version of yourself. So it's something that you've had to do in order to make your vision come reality. What is it in your life that made you uncomfortable, but you continually have to do to see your vision become a reality?
I would say part of that is public speaking. I just was paranoid. I like a private life. I would say to a certain extent I'm probably timid and very private. But because of what I do, the vocation that I have, I find that I have to do a lot of public speaking. I'm always turning away media, you know, but at times I realize that I have to do it. It's not about me, it's about what I do. So just overcoming that has not been easy because that's not my comfort area. I'd rather be busy doing the things I do here quietly, you know, not attracting a lot of attention, but it does attract attention. And I realize that I have to do it. I'm not comfortable with it, but I gotta do it. So that has kind of stretched me and has taught me to quit being so self-conscious to a certain extent. And it has also helped me deal with my shyness, yeah, and my privacy, yeah, as much as I can. Yeah, there's something I try to control as much as I can, but I have to think of the bigger picture. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's an excellent point because when you are quiet and then you're focused, your success forces you to be center stage.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely happened. Happened to you. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
You know, it just comes to my awareness that you talk about being private. And here I've asked you to tell us about you, the woman. So I thank you for agreeing to the interview.
Yeah.
Now, what would you say was your biggest obstacle to get to this point in your career? Like the biggest thing that you had to overcome, personally or professionally?
I had to overcome my own personal fears and sense of inadequacies. And then professionally, I had to overcome sometimes discouragement from people thinking you're crazy to do what you're doing. Discouragement because you can see what needs to be accomplished. You can see where you want to go. But at times there are voices on the side saying, oh, it's ridiculous. You know, what do you want to do? Especially when, every step of the way sometimes you have the cheerleaders on the side, but you also have people who are discouragers on the side. And you have to keep on remaining focused, believing, seeing what you're seeing, and you have to achieve it. Yeah, it's what I said. There's a book I read last night. It was talking about Mahatma Gandhi was saying, you have to be the change that you want to see in the world. And for me, I had to begin to see what is it that I want the world around me to become, and what I'm doing in dealing with women and children. What is it that I want them to become? And slowly by slowly, I had to begin to deal with myself to overcome some of my own barriers, some of my own fears, but also deal with the fears, the voices of deal with the discouragement of the voices of the side, and focus more on the encouragement that people were cheering me on.
Kind of goes back to what you were saying at the beginning, is being very focused. Is that, do you think that's, if you're not focused on what you want to achieve, the discouragers can take over?
Yes. Yes.
So I think that becomes a really important message, is be focused, find out, as you had done, find out your purpose, and be focused and committed to it at all costs. That's hard to do.
Yeah. it's kind of hard, but if you keep on doing it, it becomes a part of you. Yeah. It becomes your purpose for living with that focus, and then it helps you avoid too much distractions. Yeah, because when you learn to be focused, then you learn to avoid the distractors. And as you listen, and then you learn to separate the voices that you hear, and then focus on the goal.
So, what would you say to a woman trying to find her purpose? Would you have any advice for her?
To be real to herself. Real in identifying her fears, acknowledging them, but also really thinking deep and looking at the bigger picture and not just looking at the here and now. And then also beginning to, and then not fearing to look ahead, to look at 5-10 years of her life and where she wants to go. And then as you look at where you want to go, looking at your fears, understanding yourself, who you are, knowing that you're a person with strengths and weaknesses, understanding them, acknowledging them, but also seeing how you can deal with your strengths and then limit on your weaknesses. How you can use your weaknesses and turn them into strengths. To help you achieve what you want to achieve is very important. But I remember I do a lot of personal retreats. I do a lot of personal getaways, and I think it's important to just have that private time to think. And one of the things that has helped me over the years to get where I am today is taking off time to reflect, to run away from the voices, to re-energize myself, to listen to myself, to listen to God, and to begin to ask myself, okay, is this what I really want? And if this is really what I want, then irrespective of what barriers that come, I'm willing to persevere. And I'm willing to remain faithful.
Running away from the voices is good advice, because those voices can sabotage you constantly. So I understand many of the mothers in this community call their children James. Now, as I'm sure that can be humbling, but it could definitely make you feel warm inside. How are you ensuring that this environment is sustainable without you?
I think it goes back to the leadership development and the mentoring that I've really been focused on, such that whether I'm here or not, work actually continues and the mission continues. And I was just telling my staff, because I've not been here for the last 2 days, I've just been thinking, I've actually been chasing after them. They've just taken off. And I'm finding myself running after them. But when I look back, I think, oh, this is exciting. They've actually got the vision and they're running, And my running is not to restrain them. I feel my role now, running after them, is to mentor them. You're running, but my role is to tell them, okay, keep at it, run. But creating the boundaries and telling them, sharing them on. Towards the race, but not containing them, but just kind of my role is now more guiding them and shepherding them, and then I'm left in casting the vision and telling them this is where I want to go. So can we run together? But I'm excited to see that they're actually running faster than me.
Just on that vision piece, where do you see the vision of Beacon and Hope? Of hope being?
I think over time one of the things that has been exciting is seeing that my role as Beacon of Hope is not just the founder. I think God has also called me to a leadership development. I would say ministry or profession, where I'm able to see strengths in people and then also looking at their weaknesses, but begin to see how that can be harmonized to help them realize their full potential. So I think that is going to be a big part of what I'll be doing in the future in mentoring next leaders for Beacon of Hope. And the vision, of course, is to see Beacon of Hope become a center of excellence in comprehensive community transformation for the glory of God. But we want to see it impacting not just the community of women and their families in Rongai, but in the greater Kenya and the greater Africa, where communities, where centers like this are established in different parts of Kenya and in different parts of Africa, where transformative change is happening, that is empowering, that is equipping people and women in particular, for them to realize their full potential and find their God-given gifts. Because yes, our focus now is HIV and AIDS, but we are dealing with that. But there will be a cure for AIDS. But the greater problem, I think, that exists, especially in Africa, is the poverty of the mind. There's poverty, yes, of material things, but there's a lot of poverty of the mind. And for us who've been educated and exposed, we have a role to play to help people be delivered from that poverty of the mind, to realize that they have gifts and talents, and they are the change agents in their community. They are the people who can bring the change that is required in their families. And as they work with their families, as we've discovered, as you work with a woman in the family, she becomes the agent of change in the community. Because my focus when I came here was a woman, but that woman came with her children, and after some time, that young woman brought her grandmother, brought her mother, and that mother now is a grandmother, and then she also brought the youth, because all these children are growing. So as you work with a woman, you end up transforming an entire community.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head of why Wisdom Exchange TV exists.
Okay.
I mean, that's our sole purpose,
Yeah.
is to educate the mind so that people can affect the community, country, and continent. So we're very much in line in that way. So just wrapping out, what does success actually mean to you?
What does success mean to me? Success, I guess, to me is service. I would say it's also commitment to God. Being aligned to God's purpose for your life. Because when you're aligned to God's purpose for your life, then success follows in every single thing that you do. But success also comes with humility. And success also comes with focus. It's all the things that we've been talking about. But most so, I would say, it's being aligned to God's will and purpose for his life. Because when you have that in the right place, when you have that sorted out, then when that success comes, it will not come with pride. It will not come with fear, unnecessary negative fear, I would say. It will come with selflessness as well, and it will not be me-centered. It will be it will be community-centered. It will be other-centered. It will come in. It will come with servant leadership. All the things that will help you remain faithful and become the kind of leader will help. I would say Africa become the kind of country that we're looking at. That we want it to help Africa become the country that we want it to become.
So that's success, and success is leadership.
Yeah.
So how would you define leadership?
Servant leadership. Yeah.
So as a leader, what would you find are 3 pieces of advice that you would give to other women who want to lead an initiative, a project, or a vision like Beacon of Hope?
I think number 1, it goes back to what I said when we were starting. Focus is key. And then number 2, perseverance and endurance. And then selflessness. Be it in philanthropy, be it in business, the same principles actually apply. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. What would you like your leadership legacy to be?
Leadership legacy.
Have you ever thought of that?
I never really thought about it, but I would see it more in the line of to be remembered as a selfless leader. Selfless, servant leader. And to be remembered for my role in mentorship and leadership development. Helping people who never thought they had gift and talent within them become something significant for the glory of God.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So if there's one thing you could do differently in the pursuit of your success, what would that be?
I think going forward, as Beacon continues to grow, it is growing, it will grow. But I sense what God is calling me to more and more is in leadership development, in mentoring, because the foundation is set, the model is set. It's just taking it out to the different communities to which we have begun. We are already in, I would say, 5 districts in Kenya. But I see more and more my role is actually becoming mentoring the leaders, the people who are going to do the work out there. They need to be mentored, they need to be empowered, and they need to be helped and vision. And when that happens, then the work will continue, that vision will continue to multiply. But again, the success of everything is on the kind of leader. There's a famous thing that says an organization can only grow to the level of the leadership that it has. And my prayer and goal is I can continue with the role of leadership development and mentoring the leaders to be the great leaders, the great servant leaders will help Beacon of Hope become Beacon of Hope in Africa, really.
And that is what you're going to do.
Yeah.
But do you think going back sort of the question is there something you should have done differently? Should you have started that earlier, or is there something else you should have done differently in the past that may have got you closer to that vision in the future?
Not really.
Okay.
Because I think consistently that's been some of the things that I've been doing, but I want to do it much more intentionally. Yeah.
Beyond the Beacon of Hope, it could be the Beacon of Hope, the answer to this as well. But if there's one thing that you can do that you haven't done yet, what would that be?
One thing that I haven't done,
that you'd like to do?
I want to be able to overcome my fear of public speaking, and the only way to do that is to speak more. And be able to, number one, probably write, one day I'd like to write a story, write a book on my journey to where I've gotten and where God is leading me to. But I'd also like to be involved in leadership development and mentoring other women, not just necessarily Beacon, but to help other women believe in themselves and believe that they've got God-given talents to do great exploits. Yeah.
Excellent. So, reflective realizations, things that in your past. Now, I know you have 3 children. Are they all boys?
2 boys and 1 girl.
You do have a how old's your daughter?
She's 16.
She's 16.
And my 2 sons, first one is 21, and the middle one is 19.
Okay. So I want to put your 16-year-old daughter, pretend she's 10 years old today. Okay, so 6 years kind of overlap. She's 10 years old today. What advice would you give to her if she was 10 today?
I think one of the things that we continuously talk about, and we do talk about, I call her little leader. She's her name is Deborah, and she was named after the Deborah in the Bible, is to be focused. I always try to help her identify her dreams and visions, understand who she is, to focus on her strengths, and try and turn her weaknesses into strengths, and never allow her weaknesses to destabilize her and to cause her to lose her focus. And then overall, one of the things I keep on encouraging her is overall in everything we do, true success comes by obedience to God. When you put God in the right place, the rest follow. Because it's got a lot of the answers that we're looking for in life. Yeah.
What do you wish someone told you when you were 10?
I wish I got more affirmation. I wish I was encouraged to believe in myself and to take risks. And I also wish I was encouraged to focus more on my strengths. Actually, to even know myself. Because I guess I've been through a journey of discovery, self-discovery. I didn't and it was kind of unfortunate because my parents had their issues in marriage, and at some point they separated. So at some point I had to kind of clean up myself. But I've been a reader all my life, so I've read, it's different books that have actually mentored me. And I guess that is one of the things that I've learned over time. You may not have a physical human being mentoring you, but through reading books, good books of people who've gone through similar journeys, then that can give you a lot of counseling, can give you a lot of wisdom. So if I had someone who would have believed in me when I was growing up, and would have told me to focus on my strengths, and would have helped me understand myself and find myself when I was young, probably my life would be different. However,
how disappointing that would be.
Yeah, how disappointing that is, yeah. However, I keep on, I'm a firm believer that our lives are what they are because that's how we got planned it. And it was probably because of what I went through in my family background that has made me what I am today. Yeah.
And, you know, interestingly enough, just as an observation, is your goal is to make sure you're always a humble leader. Yeah. Perhaps if you had all that affirmation when you were a child, you would not be as humble today to achieve your vision. It all does work itself out somehow. Yeah. So the last question is, you know, what are your words of wisdom to women in Africa?
Words of wisdom to the women in Africa. I think the women in Africa need to begin to believe in themselves, to begin to realize that they are the hope for Africa, to begin to realize that they are fearfully and wonderfully made by God and have certain talents and gifts that can make a difference in this nation, to realize that they're actually the majority in terms of population, and taking the numerical numbers that they have, we can actually bring transformation in terms of leadership, starting from the church, at the family level, in the church, and in the wider community. But also for the women to understand that the role we play as mothers is so significant. As mothers, before we even go to the public arena, the role we play as mothers, we are the ones who play the role of giving birth and nurturing the children. So we are the ones who have the power to shape and nurture the next generation. And we can determine the kind of children, the kind of nation Africa will become by the way we parent our children, by the way we nurture our children. And then of course, we need to begin, for the way as women in Africa, to be real to ourselves and to not be afraid to be in touch with our emotions, to begin to understand ourselves, to deal with our fears and aspirations, and then to deal with the many voices that come, cultural barriers, cultural voices that come with the role of oppressing women, that they cannot make it. You know, they don't have a right to a good education. They don't have a right to leadership. They have no brains to think. But when they begin to see the role they play as mothers, you know, they are the ones who give birth to these children. Most of the time, 90% of the time, they're the ones with the children. They have a role to shape the leaders of Africa of tomorrow. Wonderful. And they need to begin to embrace that and to take that. And then as they do that, to begin to be real to themselves and to understand themselves. Because when they begin to understand that they have a say in who becomes the leader of tomorrow because of the role they play in nurturing the leaders of tomorrow, they themselves can walk alongside the great leaders, but they also can become the leaders of tomorrow as they nurture the girls who can become the presidents of tomorrow, the executive directors of different organizations of tomorrow. So they should not be ashamed of who they are.
Absolutely. Yeah. Lots of great words of wisdom, Jane. Lots of great words of wisdom. Thank you so much for spending the time with us today and giving us insight. And my name is Suzanne F Stevens, and I co-produce Wisdom Exchange TV with my husband Michael K. Ginrick. And we're traveling through Africa, interviewing women like Jane, who've really made an impact on their community, country, and ultimately the continent of Africa. If you know someone that we should be interviewing, please email us at info@wisdomexchangetv.com and give us their name, and if you have their contact information, we'll do our research and see if they meet the foundation criteria of Wisdom Exchange TV. Also, if you know an organization that would like to sponsor Africa Businesswomen Connected Summit taking place in Ethiopia in 2013, please again, email us at info@wisdomexchangetv.com and we will contact them, because this is one of the forums where women and the change agents of Africa will share their stories and inspire women like you. Lastly, do subscribe to Wisdom Exchange TV so that you don't miss an episode, because we run them every 2 weeks and we will invite you to each one. It is free and we would love your input. Please leave comments on the interviews as well. And lastly, I'd like to leave you with my words of wisdom. Push your edge to your personal and professional potential. You won't be disappointed in the person that you find at the other side of your comfort zone. Thank you for joining us.